right, deep divers, buckle up, because today we're going deep, like
Huh.
surprisingly deep, with SpongeBob SquarePants.
SpongeBob?
Really?
Oh, yeah, you know I love a curveball. We got this wild YouTube video essay someone sent in analyzing existential dread in, get this, SB 129.
That's the one where Squidward gets stuck in the time freezer, right?
Bingo. And hold on, because it gets weirder. We also have a tarot reading, someone did, focused on Squidward's creative journey.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Two very different sources, one very grumpy squid.
So, where do we even start with that pairing?
Well, the essay makes this kind of wild claim. It says that SB 129 is basically exploring, like, hardcore existentialism.
Existentialism, like Sartre.
Exactly. But specifically, it's referencing Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's getting pretty heavy for a kid's show, isn't it?
Right. But think about it.
Yeah.
Remember when Squidward gets trapped in that white void?
Yeah.
Totally alone for, like, eons?
Well, yeah, with the creepy chanting and the time loop stuff. It was kind of disturbing, even for SpongeBob.
Well, the essay says that void isn't just some random weirdness. It's meant to be a visual representation of eternal recurrence. That idea that we're stuck reliving our lives, mistakes and all, over and over and over again forever.
Oh, wow. I see where they're going with this. And, I'm not gonna lie, that's a pretty bleak thought.
Bleak is an understatement. But the essay argues that Squidward's experience in the void, as terrifying as it is, actually highlights our own anxieties about this very concept.
So even if we haven't, been sucked into a timeless void ourselves, we can still relate to that feeling of being stuck in a rut.
Exactly. We've all had those moments where life feels like it's on repeat, right? But here's where it gets even weirder. Remember how Squidward still has his clarinet in the void?
Oh, yeah, he's always got that darn clarinet no matter what.
Well, the essay says that little detail is actually super significant, like huge E.
Really? How so?
It becomes a symbol of, like, reality intruding on this abstract, timeless space. Squidward's clarinet represents his identity persisting even when everything else is stripped away.
So it's less about him actually playing the clarinet and more about what it represents, like a little piece of himself that he can hold on to.
Exactly. And it plays into the whole alone thing, too, right?
Oh.
The essay suggests this isn't just about Squidward being physically by himself, but also experiencing that deep-down feeling of being totally disconnected. Like what Nietzsche called the loneliest loneliness.
That's deep, man. But it makes a lot of sense. But okay, so Squidward's facing this ultimate existential crisis, right? But then he chooses to go back to his regular life. Why leave the void if it's just going to be the same routine anyway?
That's the big question. The essay argues that SB 129 isn't actually about resigning ourselves to this bleak, repetitive existence. It's about acknowledging that possibility, scary as it might be, and then choosing how we respond.
So it's not about escaping the loop, but more about finding ways to make the best of it.
Yeah. It's like saying, okay, maybe this is my life, flaws and all, but I can at least try to find some meaning in it. And that, I think, is where the Squidward tarot reading comes in.
Oh, yeah, we haven't even touched on that yet.
What cards are we even looking at here?
So we have a 3-card spread representing Squidward's past, present, and future, all in relation to his art, of course, his past. Struggle for recognition, but also real joy in what he creates.
Which totally tracks. Dude lives for his clarinet, even if everyone else is running for earplugs.
Exactly. Internal versus external validation, we see it all through the show. Now, present cards suggest he's undervaluing his work because of how others see it. And I think that's where his painting Bold and Brash comes in, too. It's almost like an extension of his clarinet playing.
Oh, totally, yeah. Another way for him to express his unique vision, even if it's not exactly met with critical acclaim.
Remember how SpongeBob and Patrick were, well, completely thrown by it? But like you said, even with their flexible interpretations of art.
To say the least.
Yeah.
But the tarot reading, it interprets Bold and Brash not just as like a funny visual gag, but as this bold statement of individuality, a refusal to conform to what's expected.
It's like Squidward's way of saying, look, this is my art, take it or leave it. And there's a certain power in that.
Big time.
Yeah.
It's like that quote, those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. Something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it also brings up that tension, right? Between internal satisfaction, that joy of creating something you love, and external validation, needing other people to like it.
Ugh, yeah. Where's the line? How much do we actually care what other people think? You know?
It's the million-dollar question. And honestly, I don't think there's one right answer, right? But I do think both this tarot reading and that SB 129 episode are kind of pushing us to figure out that balance for ourselves.
So it's not about, like, totally shutting out the outside world and just doing our own thing in a vacuum, but also not letting the opinions of others totally dictate our choices, right?
Yeah, it's about finding that sweet spot, that balance. And Squidward, well, he might not be the poster child for self-awareness or anything,
To put it mildly.
but he does show us that finding joy in the creative process itself, whether it's music, art, whatever, can be its own reward, even if no one else gets it.
Totally. Like Squidward escaping into his clarinet, playing even with SpongeBob right outside, banging on the wall.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting? Remember how much Squidward just craved a day off in that episode? Like, all he wanted was a break.
And then it backfires spectacularly, right?
Yeah.
He gets his wish and ends up totally miserable.
It's like the classic be careful what you wish for scenario.
Totally. His day off becomes this big empty void because he's so focused on escaping his reality that he doesn't actually know what to do with himself once he gets what he wants.
And that's something the tarot reading touches on too, actually. It warns about the dangers of getting too caught up in our expectations and, forgetting to appreciate what we already have.
So, like, even our dreams can become burdens if we're not careful, huh?
It's all about balance, right? It doesn't mean we should just give up on our dreams, but it's about finding fulfillment in the present moment too, even if things aren't perfect.
He had it all wrong, didn't he? Like, his ideal day off was just this empty container.
Totally. And he never actually filled it with anything meaningful. He was so busy trying to escape his life that he forgot to figure out what he actually wanted to escape to.
So what's the lesson there? Like, we should just accept that our lives are always going to be filled with Krabby Patties and screaming scallops and just give up on trying to find any peace.
No, not at all. It's more like maybe true fulfillment comes from finding ways to bring meaning and joy into the life we already have, right?
Instead of wishing for it to be magically different.
Exactly. Squidward's problem wasn't necessarily working at the Krusty Krab. It was that he wasn't making time for the things that actually mattered to him outside of work.
Yeah, even if it was just 5 minutes to enjoy his clarinet without, SpongeBob interrupting.
Exactly. It's about recognizing those little wins, those small moments of peace and creativity that we can find even in the middle of chaos.
Okay, so finding those moments, those little pockets of joy, even when things are hectic, that's something we can all, actually do.
Absolutely. And honestly, it doesn't have to be some big Instagram-worthy accomplishment either. It's about that personal victory, that feeling of, hey, I did that, and it feels good.
It's the little things, huh?
Sometimes, yeah.
So Squidward's art, all the awful solos, the crumpled self-portraits, meaningless in the grand scheme.
In the grand scheme,
Yeah.
sure. But and this is important, that doesn't invalidate the joy, the struggle, the fulfillment he gets from it.
Okay, this got real deep, real fast for a SpongeBob deep dive. So for those of us who aren't absorbent and porous, what's the takeaway here? What do we do with this?
It's about recognizing that meaning isn't always something you find out there. Sometimes you create it, you have things you love, you pour your heart into. Do they have to matter to the universe for them to be worthwhile? Or is the joy you find in doing them enough?
Wow. Okay, we started with a sponge who loves making Krabby Patties, took a hard left into Nietzsche, and ended up in existentialism land.
See? Told you to be fascinating.
So what I'm hearing is, even if nothing really matters, on some grand scale, those things we love, the stuff we pour our soul into, that's where we find meaning.
Exactly. It's like the universe might not care about Squidward's clarinet, but he does. That's the whole point.
Okay, my brain is still catching up, but I kind of love it. So this cycle of joy and despair, trying to find meaning in a meaningless void, but then there's Squidward blasting away on his clarinet, totally oblivious, and somehow that's the point.
Maybe. It's finding joy in the doing, even when the why is a mystery, right? It's like that Nietzsche quote, he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow.
Okay, easy with the philosophy flexing.
Sorry, couldn't resist.
So, big questions for you out there, deep divers.
Yeah.
Can we find meaning when it feels like the world doesn't give us any? And does even knowing about this cycle, the ups, the downs, the eternal return of Squidward's clarinet, does that change how we live in it?
Maybe the answer isn't overthinking it. Maybe it's embracing the joy of creation, just like Squidward and his unique musical stylings.
You know what? That's actually a really good note to end on. If you want more SpongeBob meets existentialism, and let's be real, who doesn't find that video essay and the tarot reading in the show notes? Until next time, deep divers, stay curious. And as SpongeBob would say, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready.
You ever notice how, the simplest things, a good laugh, just going outside, Those can be, like, the most profound.
We'll get ready, because today's deep dive, it might seem a little unexpected. We're going to be exploring wisdom, and hidden potential and all that through the lens of, get this, Patrick Star.
That's right. We're using tarot to decode the deeper meaning behind everyone's favorite pink starfish.
Yeah. All right, so the rock, first card. The Knight of Swords. Now, I got to be honest, when I picture peaceful Patrick, sword-wielding warrior doesn't exactly spring to mind.
Right.
Yeah.
It's that unexpected twist that makes this so fascinating.
Okay.
Think back to the episode Nature Pants, where SpongeBob tries out the jellyfish life.
Right.
Patrick, with that classic Knight of Swords energy, charges after his best friend, practically herding jellyfish in his desperation.
Oh, right. He's a starfish on a mission trying to drag SpongeBob back to reality.
Exactly. And what's interesting is even though the Knight of Swords can be, impulsive here, it's Patrick's way of protecting his peace.
Mm-hmm.
He knows when to disengage from chaos. Eventually, he retreats back to his rock, letting SpongeBob figure things out.
So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether, but knowing when to step back, protect your energy, and let others handle their own thing. Powerful stuff.
And it sets the stage perfectly for our next card, the Hermit.
Yeah.
Patrick, under his rock, is practically the poster child for solitude and introspection.
Well, SpongeBob's having an existential crisis next door.
Right.
Patrick's in his happy place, oblivious to the drama. But is that true peace or blissful ignorance?
Now that's the question, isn't it? The Hermit card is all about seeking truth within.
Okay.
For Patrick, maybe it is simple. He finds peace in solitude. But for us, it might be about asking ourselves, when has stepping back from the noise helped me find clarity? Was I avoiding something tough? Or giving myself space to process?
Wow, that just got real. Okay, so we've got this contrast. Charging in to preserve peace, then finding it in solitude. Where does that leave us with the final card in this spread, the Ace of Swords? This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The Ace of Swords is all about breakthroughs, those aha moments.
Right.
And Patrick, in his own way, has them all the time.
He does.
Yeah.
It's like he stumbles upon these profound, albeit simple truths.
truth.
Remember in Nature Pants when Patrick says,
yes.
the inner machinations of my mind are an enigma?
Classic. He thinks he's being deep, but it's actually hilarious.
Exactly. But it highlights that sometimes the most direct path to clarity is through simplicity. Patrick's not afraid to state the obvious, even if it comes out a little sideways.
Right.
And often those simple observations can spark a breakthrough for those around him.
So like Patrick, we might have these simple truths, these aha moments that we brush off because they seem too obvious. But what if those are the insights that other people need to hear?
Precisely. Don't discount your own simple wisdom.
Wow.
Okay. Now let's move from the piece of the rock spread to the next spread, the trophy.
Okay.
If the rock was about finding peace by looking inward, this one explores how we underestimate our own capabilities by focusing too much on the external.
Right. And we're diving into this theme with the episode Big Pink Loser.
Yeah.
Love this one. Patrick wins an award for doing absolutely nothing.
Which is hilarious.
So good.
But it also perfectly illustrates the first card in this spread, the Ace of Cups.
Okay.
This card is all about new beginnings, emotional openness,
Right.
embracing those beginner's mind moments.
Yeah.
Remember Patrick's pure joy when he receives that award?
He's over the moon. He thinks he's finally achieved something, only to realize it's for well-being Patrick.
But that initial excitement, that openness to possibility, that's the energy of the Ace of Cups. It's about embracing those moments with enthusiasm,
Okay.
even if they don't lead where we expect.
Don't let the fear of looking silly stop you from going after something new. I can get behind that.
Right.
But then we've got the Five of Cups.
Yes.
Which feels like a little bit of a downer.
Right, because Patrick's joy is short-lived.
Oh, yeah.
He starts comparing his achievement to SpongeBob's wall of trophies and feels like a failure.
Yes.
This is the shadow side of the Five of Cups, dwelling on what we lack instead of appreciating what we have.
Totally. We've all been there, scrolling through social media, comparing ourselves to others, focusing on our perceived shortcomings. It's so easy to get stuck in that cycle.
Exactly. And that's where the Five of Cups invites us to ask ourselves, what am I overlooking in my own life? Because I'm too focused on what I think I'm missing. What are my unique strengths, even if they don't look like everyone else's?
And that leads us perfectly to the final card in this spread, the Eight of Cups.
Okay.
This card is all about walking away from what isn't serving you,
Right.
even if it seems valuable to others.
Yeah.
In Big Pink Loser, Patrick tries so hard to be like SpongeBob,
He does.
even building his own trophy for standing.
Right.
But it's empty, just like his pursuit of someone else's version of success.
Yeah.
The Eight of Cups reminds us that true fulfillment comes from aligning with our own values, our own definition of winning.
Right.
So it's a call to action.
Okay.
What are you chasing that might not actually make you happy? What would it look like to define success on your terms?
Right.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued by this last spread, the secret box.
Okay.
It explores the hidden potential inside each of us.
Right. And it all revolves around that episode where Patrick treasures a box filled with string.
It's such a perfect metaphor.
It is.
Most people would see that and be like, what's the big deal?
Right.
But to Patrick, it's precious.
It's everything.
And that brings us to the first card,
Yeah.
the Queen of Pentacles.
Okay.
She's all about practicality, nurturing, finding magic in the mundane.
Yes.
Like Patrick, with his string, she sees value where others don't.
She does.
So it's about those hidden talents we all have.
Right.
The things we might overlook because they seem ordinary,
Yeah.
but actually bring a lot to the table.
Yeah.
Maybe you're great at organizing
Uh-huh.
or cooking
Yeah.
or just making people feel heard.
Yeah, those are strengths.
Yeah.
Don't discount them.
Right.
Now, the next card adds another layer. The King of Swords. This card is all about clarity, intellect, cutting through the BS.
Wait, are we saying Patrick has a sharp intellect?
Hear me out. Remember how Patrick sometimes blurts out these surprisingly insightful things?
Yeah.
He sees the world without all the filters and complications. This card suggests that you, too, might have a talent for getting to the heart of the matter, seeing solutions that others miss because they're too busy overthinking.
It's that beginner's mind thing again. Don't overcomplicate it.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got hidden practical talents, Andy, a sharp mind.
Mhm.
What does the final card, the Ace of Wands, bring to the party?
This card is pure creative firepower.
Okay.
It's that spark of inspiration, the drive to create something new.
Yeah.
And when we think about it, Patrick's secret box, filled with possibilities, perfectly embodies that energy.
So it's not just about recognizing our hidden talents, but about having the courage to do something with them.
Yes.
To create something new and unexpected.
To bring something new into being.
Wow. Who knew we'd uncover such deep wisdom from Patrick Starr? This has been an incredible journey.
It has. It's a good reminder that sometimes the simplest things in life hold the most profound lessons.
It really is.
Like Patrick, we all have hidden depths and surprising strength.
We do.
The key is to embrace them and see where they lead.
So as you go about your day, ask yourself, what's my secret box? What seemingly insignificant thing in my life might hold unexpected value or potential if I just give it a second look? All right, so today we're diving into some pretty surprising life lessons. And you know what? We're finding this wisdom.
Interesting.
SpongeBob SquarePants. That's right.
Okay, SpongeBob SquarePants. So, I mean, it might sound a little out there, but SpongeBob's world, as crazy as it can be,
Yeah.
offers some surprisingly, relevant insights into just, what it means to be human.
Yeah. And to, help us unpack all this, we're using a SpongeBob tarot reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
like it.
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so the way to think about it is the tarot is kind of like our framework, right?
Yeah.
So it helps us see the connections between SpongeBob's adventures and our own lives.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's dive into our first SpongeBob scenario then. We're calling this one the Jellyfish Net of Joy. And this is all about SpongeBob's just pure passion for jellyfishing, even with Kevin the Sea Cucumber, kind of raining on his parade a little bit.
Right. Yeah, and SpongeBob is just relentless about it, even when other people are doubting him, making fun of him. And that that just says a lot, right? He really embodies that idea of finding your joy and going for it, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else.
It's so true. I mean, he's totally fixated on becoming an official jellyfish spotter. Remember, when I pass this test, I'll be an official jellyfish spotter. It's such a classic SpongeBob line.
It is.
But it's interesting because it makes you think what is my version of jellyfishing? What is that thing that I just get so into, even if other people are just I don't get it?
Yeah, for sure. And the tarot is kind of pushing us to think about that too, to really examine those things that light us up, those activities we love, and be honest with ourselves. Is it actually, are we really Are we really fulfilled, or have we just gotten stuck in a rut?
That is such a good question for all of us. Like, when was the last time you felt that pure SpongeBob level excitement for something, even if it was hard, even if people didn't really get it? That's the energy we're trying to tap into.
I love that. That's so good.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's switch gears a little bit from passion to maybe something a little different. This time, we're thinking about the Krabby Patty formula for fulfillment. And it all revolves around Squidward and how he feels about those iconic Krabby Patties.
Okay, yeah, Squidward, the eternal pessimist. Right.
He's convinced that he's just like above the simple pleasure of a Krabby Patty. Remember when he says, this Krabby Patty is the most horrible, poorly prepared, vile, unappetizing, disgusting excuse for a sandwich? Oh, so good.
And yet, despite that, we know he can't resist forever. Just like all of us, he ends up giving in to that thing he was so sure he hated.
Right, that's so true. So it's about the things that we resist in life, right? Maybe we even think we dislike them. But the truth is they might just hold the key to like this unexpected feeling of fulfillment.
Yeah, like the tarot's reminding us that sometimes the things we least expect, those things we're pushing away, turn out to be the most fulfilling. So ask yourself, what are you saying no to in your life that might actually bring you a ton of satisfaction if you just gave it a shot?
It really makes you think. Are we letting our own preconceived notions and resistance stop us from finding new sources of joy and fulfillment?
Yeah, and this ties back into this bigger theme of embracing those cycles in life, you know? The idea that real fulfillment can be found in those everyday routines and tasks, the things we might usually write off as boring.
Like SpongeBob, just like diligently making Krabby Patties every single day.
Yeah.
Who knew there were such deep philosophical ideas behind that simple act, right?
Right. It really speaks to that idea that if you want mastery, if you want real lasting satisfaction, it often comes from consistency and dedication. Even when we're dealing with those repetitive tasks, it's about finding that joy in the process and really dedicating yourself to whatever it is you're doing.
That's not something I'd really thought about before. It's a good reminder that maybe those daily grinds aren't so bad after all.
Yeah.
Like maybe they can be a source of like quiet satisfaction, even joy, if we just come at them with the right mindset.
Absolutely. And speaking of approaching things with the right mindset, let's talk about what we're calling the bubble blowing technique for childlike wonder.
Oh, yeah. That scene in Bubble Stand where SpongeBob is just so into blowing bubbles. It's like he turns it into this art form. It's mesmerizing.
Yeah, SpongeBob in that moment, he really embodies that idea of being present, you know, being totally absorbed in the joy of creating something, not worried about the past or the future.
Oh, it's such a good reminder, especially for those of us who are always on the go. We could all use a little more of that SpongeBob-like ability to just like slow down and appreciate the little things. Find that childlike wonder again.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance, right? You know,
Yeah.
embracing your inner child doesn't mean you have to abandon your adult responsibilities. It's about finding that sweet spot, that harmony between both.
Right, that balance between responsibility and pure, unadulterated joy. That's what we're going for.
Exactly. It's finding ways to bring that SpongeBob-esque playfulness and wonder into our adult lives without letting it overshadow everything else. It's a constant balancing act, but SpongeBob, in his own unique way, shows us that it's possible.
And we're back, still diving deep into the unexpected wisdom of, you guessed it, SpongeBob SquarePants. It's kind of wild how these like simple cartoons can be so insightful when you really look at them.
Right. I mean, that's the power of stories, right? It doesn't matter how out there the setting is, we connect with the characters, with what they go through, and it ends up reflecting our own lives back to us.
Totally. And speaking of journeys, where's our trusty SpongeBob tarot reading taking us next?
We were just talking about that whole thing with balancing childlike wonder and adulting, which is like a lot, honestly.
It is. But hey, SpongeBob makes it look kind of fun, right?
He does. He really does. So let's go back to that scene where he's totally absorbed in blowing bubbles. He's not just like blowing bubbles, though. He's made it into this whole ritual. He's totally present, totally engaged. And the tarot is kind of nudging us to think about how we approach our own passions. Like, are we bringing that same level of dedication, that same enthusiasm to the things we love?
So it's not just about finding things we enjoy, it's about how we approach them, right?
Right.
That SpongeBob-like all-in energy.
Exactly. Think about those things that make you lose track of time, the things that make you feel fully present. Like, you can forget all your worries and anxieties for a bit. The tarot is reminding us to make time for those things, to be intentional about them, just like SpongeBob is with his bubble blowing.
I love that. It makes you realize how often we're just going through the motions.
Well, yeah.
like not really present. We get so caught up in our to-do lists and everything that we forget to just play, to find that sense of wonder.
That's so true. And honestly, the tarot is telling us we got to make a choice, you know? Are we going to let those obligations just like crush our joy? Or are we going to actively seek out those moments of wonder, of playfulness, those SpongeBob moments?
Oh man, that's the eternal struggle, isn't it? Trying to be a responsible adult while also keeping that inner child happy. But maybe it doesn't have to be one or the other, right?
You got it. The tarot's saying we got to try to find that harmony, that sweet spot where both can exist. We can be responsible and still have that spark of joy, of curiosity.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired here. This is really resonating. But before we get too lost in our bubble-blowing metaphors,
Right, right.
what else does this SpongeBob tarot reading have for us? I'm ready for more wisdom.
Okay, let's circle back to the jellyfish net of joy for a sec. Remember we talked about how important it is to find those things we're passionate about, even if they seem kind of weird to other people?
Right, like my obsession with collecting those old-school board games. Some people think it's kind of strange, but it makes me so happy.
Exactly. And while finding that joy is super important, the tarot's challenging us to think even bigger, like our passions. They can actually help us grow and evolve in ways we never expected. We just got to be open to it.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about doing our own thing. It's about recognizing how those passions can connect us with other people, too.
Yes, like your board game thing. That could lead you to start a club, or maybe you could volunteer and share your love of games with kids. The possibilities are kind of endless when we're willing to try new things and see where our passions lead us.
Man, SpongeBob, the unexpected guru of self-discovery. Who knew? This is amazing.
Right, it all comes back to perspective. SpongeBob's living in this totally absurd world, but he approaches everything with so much joy, so much enthusiasm, always open to new experiences. That's something we can all learn from.
It's about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, finding joy in the unexpected. And hey, maybe, just maybe, we've all got a little SpongeBob wisdom inside us, just waiting to come out. Back again for one last dip into the surprisingly deep world of SpongeBob SquarePants.
We've talked about that jellyfish net of joy, right? And then there's the whole Krabby Patty formula for fulfillment thing.
Don't forget the bubble-blowing technique for childlike wonder. It's amazing what we can learn from these, like, silly cartoons.
Seriously, who knew there were so many insightful life lessons hiding in Bikini Bottom? But, okay, before we go crowning SpongeBob as, like, the king of philosophy,
Right.
what's the main takeaway here?
Yeah, what can we actually take with us from this deep dive? Like, what's the SpongeBob wisdom we can apply to our own lives?
I think it comes down to perspective, you know? SpongeBob, he lives in this crazy, absurd world, but he finds joy and meaning in everything he does, whether it's flipping those Krabby Patties, chasing jellyfish like a maniac, or, you know, becoming a bubble-blowing master.
So true. It's like he never lets the chaos get him down. He just rolls with it, always looking for the positive, the fun, that little something special in the everyday.
Exactly, and that's something we could all use a little more of, right? Life is unpredictable, good stuff and bad stuff happens. But ultimately, it's how we choose to see it that really matters.
So it's not about trying to make everything perfect. It's about trying to see the world, even the messy parts, through that optimistic SpongeBob-y lens.
Yes. It's about finding the good in every day, embracing the craziness, never losing that sense of wonder, that feeling that anything is possible, and facing challenges with a sense of humor and resilience, just like SpongeBob navigating the wild world of Bikini Bottom.
Wow. SpongeBob, the unlikely life coach. Who would have thought? This deep dive has been quite the journey.
It really has. So, to everyone listening, go out there and channel your inner SpongeBob, okay? Embrace the chaos, find the joy in the unexpected, and whatever you do, don't stop blowing those bubbles.
Love it. That's all the time we have for today. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and remember, there's wisdom to be found in the most unexpected places.